Let's get into the U.S. Open Cup, another one-off competition. We had the first part of our Final Four last night. Orlando City went down 1-0 to the Red Bulls and came back and scored 5 goals unanswered. And they had a terrific second half in particular, and they get to host the final on September 7th. That is a big deal for that club. Both of those clubs, New York and Orlando, have never won an Open Cup before. New York had been to a final, but had lost in 2017 to my Kansas City Wizards, Sporting Kansas City. Sporting Kansas City went to Sacramento last night. I was there for the game. And Kansas City had plenty of opportunities, but their penchant this season is not to finish those opportunities, and that reared its head once again. Sac Republic, very heroic defending, good goalkeeping, made all the right saves, and did what they had to do. Ended up winning in penalties 5-4. There was only one miss. Graham Zusi missed for Sporting Kansas City, and Sac Republic booked their ticket, the first non-MLS club to be in the final since 2008. So both home teams did the business. I believe I got that right, Charlie, or excuse me, Heath, because you came on and said that you had, who'd you have? You had somebody else.
Yeah, I had New York and Sacramento going through. And for a brief period, I was right, Jimmy.
Big miss.
For a brief period, I was right. But look, I mean, it's an incredible thing. And while we are all MLS alum, I love a disruption to a system, and I really do hope that while I think it'd be great for Orlando and their history, young history as I guess not that young of a history of a club now for Major League Soccer age, but I'm all in on Sacramento. Jimmy, you and I need to figure out a way to get on that charter plane to the East Coast when that game happens. You know,
Orlando, I'll be there. So
you're gonna be there. Okay,
yeah,
listen. So Todd Donovan, who we had on the show last week and is a friend of ours, and we played with and against him for many years. He's the president of Sac Republic. He got me amazing tickets last night, and I think we could talk our way into that. I think we could talk 100%. Our way into some seats. Yeah, we got to make that
I'll also say this, Jimmy, since you are the resident Kansas City Wizards Sporting KC alum. What happens now? What's next? What does this mean for Peter Vermes? Because, you know, we all know Vermes is a legend. He's done it forever. He's helped win this club. He's put this club on the map, really. But there always comes a point where you need to change things up. You need to switch things. Is this the moment where you say they looked kind of like lifeless? It was all like individuals. They had no heart. And sport, you know, being Kansas City, it was always about heart. That was at the minimum, especially playing under Vermes. You know, maybe the game didn't go well, but you were given your heart. So if they're lifeless, is basically what it was yesterday, is this the time to remove yourself as coach? Do you stay as sporting director? Like what happens? How do you move forward? Because things need to change drastically. It's not just player selection.
He's so entrenched in the system, and maybe that was on purpose. I know that at the end of his career, he at Kansas City, very similar to what we were just talking about former players having a bit of a chip on their shoulder. He got treated and discarded, you know, like a piece of cattle, right? He didn't get maybe the respect and love on the way out. And when we look back at all of our ends of our careers or any of our friends, it never really goes the way that you want. You're not going to have, you know, I always think about Michael Jordan ending his career on winning the NBA championship. And even he had to come back and like sour the end of his career by playing with the Washington Wizards. Like he even couldn't help himself. And he had to figure out a way to like have the best ending of a career of all time to still coming out of retirement to make sure he had a crappy ending like the rest of us.
but that's the thing. It's very rare, but you don't have to end in that like mentality or you don't have to make other people end that way.
If Peter Vermes left right now, if Peter Vermes left right now, it is a full-blown success story. And it is really hard to turn it around and get back to like define what success is before you leave, right? Is it making the playoffs next year? Is that, I mean, if anything, you can easily transition him into a consultant role, the old Manchester United thing where you just, you know, kind of ease somebody out or some sort of something to the club to continue it. Because I think he's an important part of that, but hand it off to the next person that can take the reins, that sees it differently. And anybody knows when you are deep inside of anything, whether it's creating content, Charlie writing articles, whatever, it is really hard to take yourself out of that and look at it holistically and see it from a perspective that's sometimes much needed to provide some other things. You're deep on the inside and, you know, you're continuing to go forward. It's like old military tactic type things of why the generals or whatever would always stay back and not be stuck in the middle of all those things to be able to sort of navigate that. And I think that's an important factor within with the next generation of of fan bases, results, success for the club, all that sort of stuff.
I should have started there. The whole thing will be successful. I was there during the lean years. I was there with at Arrowhead. Then we went to Community America Ballpark, the minor league baseball stadium. And the main driver to get the owners to understand what it would mean and what it would take to be considered a top club in this country was to build a world-class facility. Their stadium's amazing. To get a practice facility that is of the standard that's necessary. And really, instead of just being the ones that are kind of doing the status quo, actually pushing the owners to invest, to be the ones that are the benchmark. They're the ones that are setting the precedent of what this should look like. I mean, the guys that designed Kansas City's stadium went on to design Minnesota United's, which is another amazing stadium. Like, they continue to be trendsetters as opposed to followers. And that's a big credit to Peter Vermes for getting the owners to buy into that and to invest in their youth academy in a meaningful way, which produced Eric Palmer Brown, was like their first big name. And all of a sudden, Sporting Kansas City's being linked with Juventus around the world and transfer gossip and all that type of stuff. And that's when the owners really started to, okay, so we can sell this guy for a couple million and that will fund our academy. And we get to be kind of part of this global conversation. I know there was a couple of those aha moments for the owners, and then their buy-in was complete. So the owner, Cliff Illig, came out recently, maybe 2 weeks ago, saying we have Peter Vermes' back. He's not going anywhere. I get the sense that Vermes is going to have, next year will be his make or break year. This year, there's injuries to Polito and Kinda and some DPs that they were relying on. And the team just kind of stifled an attack. They're not very dynamic. And so I think they become a little bit predictable. And then it puts so much pressure on the defense to have to be perfect every game. And their defense isn't good enough to be perfect every game. So that's where they're running into some issues. I think he's got one more season, and then something has to give, because if it continues in the same vein, then to your guys' point, like, something has to change. But because he's been so entrenched, I think he's got to fire himself ultimately. I don't know if he has the wherewithal, to your point, Heath, about kind of being so far in it to do that. But man, and the facility out there now, which they share with USC, is unbelievable. I was there last week. I walked around going, I can't believe this is real. I walked in, they've got a couple of chefs on location. They're like, yeah, what do you want? You fill out this thing, they get it. And then once you're done, you fill out like this whole other sheet about what you want for lunch. It's personally made. Incredible. It's unbelievable. I used to change out of the back of my trunk for practice, when this is insane. So yes, the game has gone and developed very quickly, especially in Kansas City. And that's a credit to Peter Vermes. But then what? And this is what we're talking about. You got to rip off the Band-Aid. You're going to have to break up with your longtime girlfriend. You got to get divorced from this very important marriage or whatever it is that you've had. And how do you do that? And when do you do that? And I think that's the big question mark that's facing Kansas City right now. And it's going to face other clubs in the future. I mean, Ben Olsen was there with DC United not too long ago. And I don't know who wants to jump in here, but go for it. Anybody? Anything to add?
There's just so many, it was like the time when you asked Paul Caligiuri one question, but it was two questions, and it was like, and then,
I didn't know if it was going to come back around. You know what? Let's do this.
It's got to be a homegrown, right? It's got to be like a homegrown Sporting Kansas City player, right? So if I'm thinking of players who could step in and be the head coach, if Peter Vermes was to remove himself from that position, right? It's Davey Arno is one, Benny Philhaber is one, yourself possibly is one.
Thank you.
Josh Wolf, Kerry Savagnin, but I feel like
he's already on the staff. He's kind of more.
Yeah,
so
Paulo Nagamura,
Ike Opara. Yeah. He's assisting Benny Philhaber.
Okay, so I mean that to me looks like you
maybe the path
got
forward.
Some choices. Yeah.
All right.
Josh.
All right.
Wolf.
Okay. All right. Josh Wolf's a good one. He's been doing really well with Austin.